Today we are looking to strike it rich with this next review and find Sir Francis Drake's treasure in Uncharted: Drake's Fortune. But before we climb into these ancient civilizations, I'd like to give a shout out to Koko for yet another great art piece. Now that is done, let's dive right into this tomb. Developed under one of the best teams at Naughty Dog, under the codename Big, Uncharted started after Jak 3 and took about 2 years from start to finish. Naughty Dog wanted to start a new franchise for the new PS3 and try for a more detailed, realistic experience, but with some flair, termed stylized realism. Using cell microprocessors to generate far more realistic expressions and movements, they wanted to create a more fluid, immersive experience. Uncharted is a third-person action-adventure shooter with platforming elements. You are Nathan Drake, searching after Sir Francis Drake's lost fortune. Aided on this adventure by Elena Fisher and Victor Sullivan, you'll journey from in the middle of an ocean to ancient ruins to a long-lost Spanish colony and more. Honestly, the story is pretty good, captivating, well-paced, action-packed, and fun the entire time. The characters really feel like real people, and Naughty Dog is pretty good at writing characters. I mean, just look at Jak and Dexter in The Last of Us. Fast-paced action shooting, swinging from vines and scaling tall surfaces, brutal beatdowns on enemies. This game is filled with fun gameplay. First up, let's discuss the combat. It's a cover-based third-person shooter. The shooting is solid and some neat mechanics like crumbling cover, blind fire, and the melee beatdowns that if used on enemies cause them to drop double the ammo. Overall, the combat's solid and enjoyable. The platforming is also good. Plenty of stuff to climb, jump, and navigate, with crumbling environments forcing you to move at times or risk falling to your doom. Toss in neat and kinda clever puzzles that help to break up the action and pace the game. Overall, I enjoyed and it's a pretty nice experience. The controls are fine. The configuration took me a little bit to get used to, but that's more a me thing because I swap games so often. They play fine, are responsive, and they have no real delays or issues. You can't complain either way. Well, the enemies aren't exactly the most varied. It's mostly mercenaries who wear different outfits and such, which signify the sort of weapon they're armed with. Like the red Hawaiian shirt guys are always armed with grenade launchers. The big bulky black dudes are usually armed with shotguns. Well, at least till you get to near the end of the game and it throws a fucking curveball at you and unleashes fucking zombie monsters. Let me tell you, that threw me for a loop the first time I played. I gotten so used to normal humans and traps trying to kill me. For a horde of asshole mutants to swarm out was certainly a nice shift in variety. A neat thing is the game hints at the enemies earlier into the story though, with the setting of traps across the island that are new and not set by the mercenaries. The atmosphere is dope, fantastic settings, beautifully rendered, detailed and chock full of secrets. The game's soundtrack adds to the atmosphere immensely, and the large variety in areas really helps break it up and set moods for each area. The bunker feels like a horror game at times with those mutants I mentioned sneaking around, creeping and setting up small scares, ambush, and you uncover the story of what happened in these places. Pounding drums, inspirational orchestras that remind you of adventure and glory, sinister jungle and tribal themes. The soundtrack is a mix of orchestra and tribal reminiscent music, befitting both the Indiana Jones style explorer vibe of the game and the wild, dangerous environments that you explore, while hunted by both mercenaries and the descendants of the original colony, twisted by time and a deadly virus. The voice acting is excellent, really shows off how the characters are meant to be portrayed accurately, and the sound effects are solid as well. Overall, another strong section. A pretty game, released in 2007, early into the PS3's lifespan. It is a very nice looking game. As they said, stylized realism. It's not entirely focused on being super HD, but detailed enough with a style that makes it last. And the game has great facial and body animations like they were going for. Really fluid and realistic. This is something a lot of games struggle with now, let alone back in 2007. The game runs well, and I've noticed no real performance issues. Well, it is an action-adventure game, and the big set-piece action sequences can be a downside to some people. But back in 2007, when the game released, it wasn't exactly super common and saturating the market like it does now. Enemy variety can also be definitely improved, because Random Thug 37 just ain't doing it for me. Well, we've reached El Dorado. Was it everything the legend said, or was it another dead end? Honestly, the game is good, with a great soundtrack, strong story and cast, fun gameplay and good characters. It's a great experience all the way around. If you're a fan of action or adventure, love the Indiana Jones movies, and want a vine-swinging, thug-blasting, jungle-creeping good time, I'd recommend it. I've hoped you enjoyed this review, and I'd like to give one last shout out to Koko for another great art piece. I'd like to remind y'all to check out our social media down below to keep up with the channel and community. This has been Core, and I'll see you next time.